Yeah, this is a really special event for me because I connected with Mckenzy when I was the patron of reading at Bishop Headley High School in Merthyr. And this person, completely out of the blue, emailed me and said, I was at one of your talks in the school and I have written this thing. Can you give me some feedback? So I said, oh, yes, please. And I was just really struck by how actually good the writing was. I was thinking, I wish I could have written like this when I was your age. It really was great writing. And so I basically gave Mckenzy some help, sent him the Stephen King book on writing, which is one of my favourite textbooks for new writers, really, and talks about how he actually got started and how to get started yourself as an author. And I'm not even sure if she needed the advice, because a year or so later, but I had another email, I've published my first book. And I say, wow. So it's an amazing achievement. So Mckenzy's now got 2 books out. He's currently at college as well, studying English and hoping to be a full-time writer. I'm really liking to think that he's going to end up as being Merthyr's answer to Stephen King. And so, right, I'm going to stop talking because this is all about you. Right? What does it feel like to be a published author, to see your first books out?
It's one of those questions I probably wouldn't have been able to answer 5 minutes ago, because it's only now settling in that I really am a published author. It's also really nice to brag about it, because it's a good conversation starter to walk up to someone and be like, oh, I brought 2 books. Yeah, it's cool.
That's right. Yeah. So you started writing very young, didn't you? So when did you actually realise you were going to become an author? It was what you wanted to do.
I don't think there was ever a time I didn't want to do something with writing. I think back to like the oldest times, and I was sat there writing these weird stories. There was one about someone called Blobby, and he was like a slime creature, and it was just really random. But like, I can go into my house now and find tons of old ones. I don't think there's ever been a time I don't want to be a writer.
Wow. So it's almost like, yeah, you came into the world with a mission.
Yeah.
Okay. So Lucy did touch on the circumstances around writing your first book, and because you were 16 when it was published, which is absolutely huge. And I have to say that it hit the Amazon bestsellers lists when it came out as well, which my books have never done. So that's great. So tell us a bit about what actually inspired you to write the book.
Well, I did decide I wanted to write the book. That was the one that came out when my mother passed away. I was in a very, very bad place, and I just keep thinking about it. It was a horrible time, obviously. The book for me was my sort of coping mechanism. I never planned on publishing it, but I'm very happy I did. So yeah, it was very much because of her and making the best out of a bad situation.
That's great. So tell us something about the storyline of why they... In fact, tell me first of all, why is it called Why the Good Die Young? Where did you get the title from? Sorry, we didn't practice that.
That's why.
Okay.
That's why the title is Why the Good Die Young. The book itself, everyone who's there, it always seems to be the best people do die young. I think everyone knows that. The book itself, it kind of tackles the idea of going too soon. There's one character in there, inspired by me, which I don't talk about, but the person who is inspired by me took their life young to be with their mother, so it's kind of relatable. The book itself does really target like grief and stuff like that, and I think it was kind of me wondering to myself, why do the good people always die young? And then I thought, well, why do I think that? And I decided to write about it. So yeah.
So tell us how the story starts then.
So the story starts, it's Robin Byrne, it's my main character. She arrives in the afterlife town of Wayward. It's too peaceful for her. She's very fiery, feisty, argumentative, a bit like me. I do like to argue my point. And the town's a bit too peaceful for her. It's inspired by my like growing up in Barry Island and stuff, which you know. She's like me. It's too perfect. She wants to start a bit of trouble, and she starts digging into it. Adds a look what's going on, and she finds that there's a lot of bad like stuff going on too. So it's very much a mystery.
Yes, I did really love the way that you combine elements of mystery and thriller and horror and bring the different genres together in your book. We'll talk a bit more about your love of horror later. So, yeah, you just mentioned Barry Island. one of the really fascinating things about this is using real life places and people as inspiration for this story, just set in an afterlife other world. So how does Barry Island translate to the afterlife?
It's an odd one. I didn't actually realise at the start that I based it off Barry Island. But like growing up, obviously anyone who's Welsh has been to Barry Island. It's iconic. And I was thinking, the afterlife for me, if I want it to be anything, it's somewhere where you feel peaceful at home. And it's very much happy memories in Barry Island. So I took that inspiration, like from family holidays and stuff. So I guess for me, if I wanted an afterlife, it would be Barry Island. Somewhere
Oh,
nice to
nice.
be with the family.
Yeah. Are there any sort of actual memories that made it through into the storyline in the book? Your memories? Yeah.
There are a lot of memories. Practically every scene that happens in it, which is nice, other than all the murders, because they're not nice, are taken from my life. Like, just the simple stuff, going out to cafes, going to the fair, all that sort of stuff is in there.
Nice. Okay, so we know the book was written really as a tribute to your mum and a way of you coping with losing her. And she really does sound like the most wonderful person. So do you think that creativity can help people with grief and loss and working through those feelings? And how did it help you?
Without a doubt, yeah. It's like the only thing that helped me. I feel like I bottled it down for a very long time. And there was a lot I wanted to say, but I couldn't say it, so I wrote it down. It very much is like a conversation starter to when it comes to it. It's a lot easier to say, oh, I've written a book and it's about my mum, because my mum passed away, than to say, oh, my mum's dead. So it does work a bit better. Yeah.
Okay. So it sort of, helps you work through the feelings.
Definitely.
It also helps other people to be able to connect with that.
Yeah.
Then and yes, helps you to be able to talk about it to other people. So tell us about your writing process. Do you plan? Do you just sit and make it all up?
I am very OCD, so I do have to plan a lot. I don't like when stuff isn't in a plan. I spent probably more time planning out the books than I do actually writing them, which does help. But I'm not going to stick into a plan, so I end up writing the book, and when I'm writing it, I shot myself. With my first book, I did have a plan. Did not go well, because the book completely changed after chapter 2, and one of my favourite characters ended up being killed off. I didn't even realise they were going to die. So, a bit mad at myself that it happened, but it did. So yeah, there's a plan, but I don't stick to it.
Yeah. Well, it does seem to work very well for you. Yeah, that's good. So yeah, you've got a very strong horror thriller theme going in the books. You said lots of gruesome murders, this big mystery that's slowly unfolding through the book. So do you read a lot of horror?
I do,
Yeah,
I love to read and obviously watch horror.
Yeah.
But growing up, I would always read like R.L. Stein, Stephen King. So I still do. For Christmas, I got a bunch of Fear Street books, so I'm very much still into horror. I am a scaredy cat though, I won't lie. So I think I read them just because I enjoy being scared, and then I want to scare other people. A bit more power and control if I'm the one doing the scaring.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Have you got any a favourite book?
No, I don't think so. I like any.
Yes.
All of them.
Yeah. Right, I think it's time we heard some of a book now. So if you'd like to read, you're reading from the first chapter, aren't
From
you?
the first
Oh, yeah.
chapter, Okay. Bodies call it quits when they've had enough. That's life's basic deal. But souls, they're on an eternal road trip, no pit stops in sight. Robin Burns' eyes fluttered open to the soft glow of dawn filtering through her window. For a disorienting moment, she didn't recognize the charming room around her. The delicate lace curtains, ornate furniture, floral wallpaper. Blinking, she took in her unfamiliar surroundings with a mix of wonder and unease. Where was she? Robin pushed herself up in the plush bed, her fingers catching on the glint of a diamond ring. A faded memory tugged at her, driving along a winding coastal road as the sun slipped beneath the horizon. The subtle breeze carried a hint of salt in the air. Robin's gaze landed on antique television and a dress aligned with her favourite classic movies on display. This room seemed constructed for her, tailored to her soul's desires and memories, but by who? Her bare feet carried her out into the hallway, fingers trailing along the intricate wallpaper patterns. The floors of polished hardwood, the corridors adorned with ornate tapestries and chandeliers casting prismatic light. Robin descended the grand staircase, perplexed and a little unnerved by the lavish craftsmanship around it. A seamless blending of aromas, fresh brewed coffee, pastries from a bakery, hints of the salty ocean beckoned her forward. As Robin followed the scented trail, a movement caught her eye. Through the windows, people, no souls, drifted along the streets in a choreographed reverie. Then, before she could process anything further, a chorus of voices rang out in the foyer ahead. Good morning, Robin Byrne. Welcome to the afterlife.
Nice. I love the way you've just captured her confusion with that, and we haven't got a clue what's going on. So we are completely with Robin, and we've just woken up. You're thinking, what on earth is happening here? So before we get on to talking about your experiences of publishing, actually, can I just throw in an extra question? So yeah, when you finish, how much editing do you do when you finish your book? Do you find that you rewrite a lot as well? Yeah.
After the first draft, I thought I'd written a really good book, and then I started reading it and I realised how bad it was. So I did have to rewrite the whole thing.
Okay.
And then I'm a bit of an overthinker, so I did rewrite it 5 times.
Wow.
It's a lot.
Yeah, so a lot of. Now, how long did it take you to write it all together?
Overall, it was 3 years for the whole book.
Wow. Yeah. Right. So yeah, let's talk about publishing, because not only did you actually create a full-length book, but you took the step of publishing it yourself, which is really terrifying. And to do it when you're still young, when you're in college as well. So what actually made you decide to do that?
I wasn't planning on publishing because I didn't think that it was possible. And then my father just went, just do it. And I was like, yeah, it's not that simple, but it turns out it is. If you just go for it, you got to do what you got to do. And then it was quite easy, to be honest.
Great. So, and your family were supportive
Very
all the way through? Yes. So how did you actually find the self-publishing? Was it easy? Was it nice to do? Were there any difficulties?
I'd done it through the Amazon KDP service, which made it a lot easier. Because I was looking at other ones, but that was the easiest for me. It takes away a lot of the struggles, and they do put the money in, so they invest into actually printing for you and stuff. There were some issues with self-publishing that I ran into, and that's because I got really carried away with it quite quickly, because I was like, oh, I'm going to be a published author. Published it, realised I had quite a few mistakes in it, and I had to go back and fix them. And now I've got a new cover for it, which is available now. So yeah, there were some difficulties, but I think it's made me better.
Okay, so what would you be doing next time differently, having gone through the process?
I put it out for pre-order, and I wasn't planning on releasing it for another 3 months, but we got roughly 200 sales on the pre-order within the first few days. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to get this out. So it put a lot more pressure on me to release the book. This time I'm not putting a pre-order out.
Right.
But
yes.
Yeah, that would be my one big, just trusting myself.
Yeah. So if your younger self was sitting right at the back of the audience there now, wanting to know about writing, your younger self, well, what advice would you give to your?
I think when I think of my younger self, it is days after she passed for me.
Yeah.
I know they're feeling very lonely. I'm going to be honest about it. I'm about to get emotional.
That's all right.
I tell them to just write now, because they didn't believe that they could.
Hey.
I tell them to grow up here, because they can do it. They need to just start listening when people tell them they can. They're not babying them, they're being genuine. Like Claire Fayers, when she told me I could do it, and I laughed when I got the email. Yeah, I think a lot of people want to write, and they think, oh, I can't do this, I'm not going to be good enough. You just got to start. So I would tell myself to just get over the worries and start doing it now.
Yes. And I'll say it again, that yes, I really wish I'd started at your age, actually, because I my first book was published when I was in my 40s. And I'm thinking, yeah, I've got all that time that I could have actually been writing, and I was just mucking about, wishing I'd done something. So yeah, starting young is something I really admire. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Right. So you've just published your second book, haven't you? That which came out this year, which is a vampire-based horror one. So tell us a bit about that one.
My second book is Blood Brides. It's about vampires, but it's more about, it's a bit of a feminist movement novel, so it does comment on women oppression. It's been described, this got to my head and I boosted my ego a lot, described as The Handmaid's Tale of Vampirism, that's iconic. So that was very fun to have. It's about a girl who's dying, because she's sick at the start of it, and for years vampires have been in control. And she decides because she's dying, she wants to start living her life, and decides to take it back to him. So it's very much a rebellion movement sort of book.
Sounds really good. Are you going to read us a bit?
I can read it.
Yeah, come on, read us a bit. I did have another question, but now I want to hear some actually. So. Oh, yes.
The light bled through, and Helena Swanson knew it was time to die. Her eyes, burdened by fatigue, reluctantly unveiled a world determined to snatch her back from the solace of unconsciousness. Morning's harsh rays penetrated the thin fabric of her tent, casting a feeble glow on the warm canvas walls. A makeshift bed of coarse blankets cradled her frail form, the fibres pressing into her weakened frame. Fixated on her father's boots shuffling to view, Helena watched as a worn leather creaked with each step. Jim Swanson, a kind, weathered man, bore the imprints of a life defined by hardship and love. His eyes, once vibrant, now clouded with concern, surveyed his daughter's struggle against the grip of sickness. "Helena," he called out softly, his voice cutting through the oppressive stillness of the tent like a gentle melody. Approaching her with the care of years of fatherly tenderness, he said, "Time to wake up, sweetheart." As she pushed herself up, the effort revealed the gaunt contours of her face. Sweat clung to her pallid skin and damp strands of hair clung to her forehead. Trying to muster a smile, it faltered into a weak grimace. Peering into her father's eyes, she expected the usual surge of fear that waking in this unforgiving world brought. However, today a strange calm settled over her. Deep down, Helena longed for release, an escape from the ceaseless struggle against an illness determined to claim her.
I say I love that first sentence. That is just such a strong opening. So what are your hopes for the future now? Are you going to keep writing?
I think they would be very stupid to stop writing now. So as much as I'm focused on college a minute, I'm definitely going to keep it up. And I'm working on a third book, which is exciting. Also, can't say what, but I've been approached by a streaming service with the likelihood of releasing a show about one of my books. So I'm currently writing a pilot with them, which is quite exciting. So I'm hoping that I can make this into a proper career.
Be great. Yes, so when do you finish college? How much longer have you got?
Well, hopefully if I make it past my exams, I've got one more year.
Oh, great. And then university after that?
Definitely, yeah.
Right. Right, so we wanted this to be a conversation with everybody, really. So I'm just going to open it up to questions from you all now. So anything you'd like to ask? Yeah.
How do you balance college and the writing? Because it's both very full on.
So I'm doing A-levels, so very heavy on like the topics.
Yeah.
The college themselves have been very, very good with it. They've been helping out when I need to, so I'm allowed to go to like this entire room they've got set up for me, which is really nice. But of course, college does take up a lot of time. I probably give too much time to my writing over college, so I'm trying to organise that a bit better. That's something I want to do. I think if you want to write, you just got to write, and the college understands that. So whenever I get time to write, I'm writing.
Yeah. Right.
I know when I try and write, I always struggle with writing a book. I feel like I've got an idea, I try and write it down, and I forget it, or I just like can't concentrate. Do you have any advice or like tips for when you are struggling to write? You know you want to, but you can't seem to put words down.
I'm exactly the same. It's the biggest issue with writing. I think everyone, even you, can agree with that.
Yeah.
The worst problem with writing is when it's like right there and then you lose it. I refuse to not write down as soon as it comes into my head. Like, my father would agree. We can be having a chat, and if something comes into my mind, he's blanked, and I'm off, and I write it straight away. So I put writing first. I think that's all you really can do. There's no way to stop writer's block. It's the worst thing, but that's what I do.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're only 16. You've got loads of interests. What is it particularly about this genre that makes you want to write about that so much?
Okay, so obviously I write a lot of fantasy, sort of supernatural stuff. I think for me it's because it's quite a limitless subject. No one can tell me I'm wrong, and like I said, I'm very argumentative, so if someone tries to tell me I'm wrong, I'm going to argue it. With fantasy, I'm the one making the world, so there's a lot of control there, and I just write whatever I want to write. I think that's the funnest part about it.
Yes. Okay.
How do you think of so many good ideas?
First off, thanks for saying that I make good ideas. There's a lot of bad ones too. I think anyone else who's a writer will know you start writing some stuff, you realise how bad it is. But I think for me, it's just write whatever you come up with. It's not always going to be good, it's not always going to be bad. You just got to see where it goes. So for me, write as much as you can. Always keep writing.
Yeah, you're the right at back.
Thank you so much for sharing what you've shared so far. I've got a question around how you experience yourself as a writer. So when you're actually writing, does it go into a keyboard? Is it to a pen? Are you aware? Do you go into a zone? Do you go into a creative flow? Or do you push through and then reflect after? Or does it change? Big question, sorry.
Big question, yeah, but I can answer it. I'm very much multimedia with how I write. So I always carry a notebook with me, so when I'm in college, sometimes you'll catch me during class, I'm writing stuff down. Teachers have to tell me off for that. But always at home, my computer's out. And if you come into my house, that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm sat there with the computer. I just think, when I'm writing, I'm not actually thinking about what's happening around me. So that is like the biggest thing. I think a lot of writers would agree if someone takes over you. Like I said about how I plan. Yes, I plan, but I shot myself a lot as well because, yeah, I don't know what I'm going to write. It's like someone takes over you.
That's great. I mean, there's so many people, I think, who would have like writing envy skills. Just to hear you say that. Thank you.
Any more questions? Yeah.
I love the readings. I'm blown away by what you've done. I've been meaning to write a book for years, and got no excuse. When you obviously create these amazing worlds, have you got like a clear idea of the bigger world? Because obviously you can only include a little bit of it in the book. But do you have a sense of the bigger world in your head? Like you've got it all mapped out?
I think when it comes to it, because I fantasy and that sort of stuff, there's, like I said, it's a lot more planning than actually writing the book for me. Obviously hopes for sequels and stuff in the future. I come up with an entire timeline, maps and everything of mine. So I think when you come to it, the most important part, because I hate plot holes. When I'm watching something, if there's a plot hole, I'm reading something, I always call it out straight away. So, because I'm very much argumentative, like I said, I'm not willing to have like any reasons people can say, oh, you've messed up there. So I do plan out a lot in advance with that.
I was interested to know what you plan to do at university. Do you know yet? Are you still thinking?
I am planning on doing creative writing, but I'm looking to go to the Royal Holloway, and there's a subject there. It's studying society through literature. So it's a dual course on sociology and English literature.
Interesting. Any more questions? Yeah.
Yeah, totally blown away by your work. I was going to ask you about rituals, but I think I might have figured it out, but you can tell me if I'm wrong. So you build up maps and complicated plot lines, which you can, after chapter 2, you may veer off because the story takes over. Do you think all this careful plot planning and laying out things, it's a ritual, it's actually essential, isn't it?
Without
By the
that,
sound
yeah.
of your writing, which you say. Have you done that right from your early writings? Do you think you did that?
I think from day one, yeah, I'd always say I was always planning it out. So definitely, yeah.
Thank you.
I've got another question, which is similar, I think you sort of answered, but more in terms of like discipline and your writing habits. So do you find like you sort of go home, you've got an idea, and you just write, or do you set time aside? Because I know for me, like I'm working, I come home and so easy to just sit in front of the TV. Like do you have sort of, you plan, you plot your books, but do you also plot and plan your life and dedicate time to writing itself?
Yeah, when it comes to planning it out, obviously I've got college and stuff as well. It is, like you said, very easy to go home and just chuck on Netflix and watch whatever you want. So I kind of force myself into, right, if I pick up the computer and it's there, I'm going to have to type some in. So I think if you were forcing yourself to do it, it's going to happen. It's just not that easy sometimes because you want to watch what everyone else is watching. But yeah, if you just pick up the computer, turn it on, usually that's what works for me.
I like that notion of forcing yourself, because there is this sort of tension, is that you really want to write, and yet actually the moment that you make yourself sit down, sometimes do you find that can really be a struggle sometimes? You go say, right, I am going to do it now, and then after 10 minutes you're lost and you can just keep going for ages. Yeah, so it's a little bit of discipline at the start, and then you can just, and then you just go, yeah. Right, one very important final question then. Where can people buy your books?
Yeah, both my books are available on Amazon. It's Why the Goods Are Young and Blood Brides, A Vampire Story, with my name, Mckenzy Dominy. So if you just search up on Amazon, you can get it there. And there's a website currently being made.
Great. Shall look forward to that. Thank you so much for coming in, Mckenzy, and talking about that. And I know it's not always easy to be talking about the topics of grief and loss. So yeah, you've done really well, and congratulations. And we're all going to be looking out for your books in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.